Right then, Forest faithful, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you will shake you to your very core. The city ground has witnessed some dark days over the decades, but yesterday was something else entirely. Something that's got every red questioning everything we thought we knew about this season. This project, this entire direction we're heading. I've got 4 explosive stories that'll leave you absolutely speechless. And trust me when I say this, each one cuts deeper than the last. We're talking about a manager under siege, fans reaching breaking point, and a football club that's spiraling faster than anyone could have possibly imagined. This isn't just another disappointing result. Lads, this is a full-blown crisis that threatens everything we've built over the past few years. The atmosphere around the city ground right now, it's toxic. You can feel the tension the moment you walk through those gates. The expectation that filled the air just months ago has been replaced by something much darker, much more dangerous. Fear. Genuine fear about where this club is heading and whether we can stop the rot before it destroys everything. First up, I'll reveal exactly what happened in those final moments against Sunderland that had the entire city ground erupting in absolute fury. The scenes were mental, completely mental, and what the players heard from the stands. Brutal doesn't even begin to cover the raw emotion that poured down from every section of our ground. Then we're diving deep into the numbers that'll make your blood run cold. Our position in the table right now isn't just disappointing, it's downright catastrophic. We're talking about a fall from grace that's got rival fans laughing at us across the country, mocking everything we stand for as a football club. But here's where it gets really serious, where the stakes become life or death for everyone involved. I've got insider information about what the next week could mean for the absolute future of Nottingham Forest. The pressure is mounting like you wouldn't believe. Decisions are being made behind closed doors, and everything we know could change in a matter of days. And finally, the moment that sums up exactly where we stand right now as a football club. The moment when the relationship between team and supporters reached a point of no return. It's heartbreaking, it's raw, and it shows just how far we've fallen from the heights we once dreamed of reaching. Now, before I drop these absolute bombshells on you, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button if you're ready for the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Drop a comment telling me your brutally honest thoughts about where this club is heading. Are you still back in Ange Postecoglou? Or have you seen enough of this experiment? Because after what I'm about to reveal, everything changes. The first revelation is going to blow your mind, and it starts with the most humiliating scenes the city ground has witnessed in years. He arrived with such promise, such genuine hope for the future. The Australian tactical revolutionary who was meant to bring beautiful, attacking football back to the banks of the River Trent. The man who conquered Scottish football, who'd been courted by bigger clubs, who chose us because he saw something special in this project. But what we witnessed yesterday, it was the complete opposite of everything we've been promised, everything we've been sold. I'm talking about Ange Postecoglou, and the scenes at full-time yesterday will haunt him for months, possibly years to come. This wasn't just another defeat in a difficult season. This was a comprehensive humiliation that exposed every single weakness, every tactical flaw, every fundamental reason why this appointment is looking more disastrous with each passing week. Picture this nightmare scenario: 90 minutes of football, completely and utterly dominated by Forest from start to finish. 22 shots at goal, nearly 65% possession, wave after wave of attacks that should have buried any championship side by halftime. But what did we get for all that territorial dominance, all that pretty passing, all that possession-based football? Absolutely nothing. Zero. A big fat duck egg on the scoreboard, while Sunderland, a team fighting for promotion from the championship, walked away from our ground with 3 precious points. The match statistics tell only part of this horror story though. Chris Wood, our supposed goal machine, our main striker who cost us serious money, somehow managed to miss an absolute sitter from just 3 yards out, a free header, practically standing on the goal line, that any Sunday League striker would have buried with his eyes closed. But that's become the story of our season under Postecoglou's tactical system. We create beautiful chances, but couldn't finish our dinner if our lives depended on it. The tactical setup yesterday was naive at best, criminally negligent at worst, playing such an impossibly high defensive line against a team specifically built to exploit counterattacks, leaving acres upon acres of space behind our center backs for their pacey forwards to exploit. It's like Postecoglou learned absolutely nothing from months of watching championship football. This isn't the Scottish Premiership where you can simply outclass teams with pretty passing patterns and superior technical ability. But here's the moment that really crystallized everything wrong with this entire appointment. With 10 minutes remaining on the clock, desperately needing a goal to avoid yet another humiliating defeat, what does our supposed tactical mastermind decide to do? He brings on Nicolas Dominguez, a player who hadn't kicked a competitive ball since May, who was making his first appearance back from a long-term injury, expecting him to be our savior in the dying moments. The worst part of this entire nightmare, you could see it written all over the players' faces. The confusion, the growing frustration, the complete and utter lack of understanding about what they're supposed to be doing on that pitch. Morgan Gibbs-White, our star player, our record signing, our captain, sitting on the bench for the entire match watching this tactical shambles unfold before his eyes. How do you possibly explain the decision to supporters who've invested their hearts, their money, and their unwavering faith into this project? 5 games into the season, 0 wins to show for it. And yesterday's performance somehow managed to be both completely dominant and utterly pathetic at exactly the same time. We're creating more clear-cut chances than almost anyone else in the division, but we're also defending like a collection of players who've never met each other before, let alone trained together for months. What hurt the most wasn't even the final result. It was watching Sunderland's players celebrate like they just won the Champions League final, a team that hadn't managed to win away from home in the top flight for 7 long years, treating our sacred ground like their personal playground. The disrespect was absolutely palpable, and you know what the most painful truth is? We deserved every single bit of that celebration. Do you genuinely think Postecoglou has already lost the dressing room? Because from where I'm sitting, watching the body language and hearing the whispers, it's looking more likely with each disastrous performance. Comment below and tell me if you've seen enough of this experiment, because what I'm about to reveal next shows just how catastrophically bad things have really gotten. Remember when we talked about European football? Remember those dreams we dared to have about pushing for the top half of the Premier League, maybe even challenging for a continental competition spot? Remember when finishing in the top 10 felt like a realistic target rather than a fantasy? Well, I hope you enjoyed those beautiful dreams while they lasted, because reality has just served us the biggest, most brutal wake-up call imaginable. We're talking about a catastrophic fall that absolutely nobody saw coming. Not even the most pessimistic, doom and gloom Forest supporter among our faithful fan base. After all the summer spending, all the grand promises from the board, all the exciting talk about building something genuinely special at the city ground, we've crashed straight through the floor and into the basement of English football, 16th place. Just let that horrifying reality sink in for a moment. 16th position in the Premier League table with a pathetic 5 points from 6 games played. We're sitting closer to the dreaded relegation zone than we are to even mid-table mediocrity. This isn't just underperforming against expectations. This is catastrophic failure on every single conceivable level of professional football. The raw numbers don't lie, and they make for absolutely horrific reading if you're a Forest supporter. 5 points from 6 matches means we're averaging less than a single point per game. At this disastrous rate, we'd finish the entire season with around 30 points, and that's proper. Genuine relegation territory, the kind of points total that gets managers sacked before Christmas and sees clubs relegated without putting up any kind of meaningful fight. But here's what makes this nightmare scenario even worse. Just look at exactly who we failed to beat this season. Sunderland, a championship team still finding their feet in higher division football, just took 3 points off us at our own ground. Southampton, another newly promoted side still adapting to Premier League intensity, held us to a frustrating draw that felt like a defeat. We're not losing narrow games to Manchester City, Liverpool, or Arsenal here. We're dropping precious points to teams that should be looking up at us in the final table. The stark contrast with last season's promising campaign is absolutely staggering. When you examine the statistics, by this exact point 12 months ago, we had accumulated 11 valuable points and were sitting pretty in 8th place in the table. We were the genuine surprise package of the division, the team everyone was talking about for all the right reasons, the romantic story that neutrals wanted to succeed. Fast forward exactly 1 calendar year, and we've become the laughing stock of English football. Leicester City, who came up from the Championship alongside other promoted teams, are currently sitting in 7th place with 10 hard-earned points. Brighton, who everyone predicted would struggle after losing their highly rated manager during the summer, are occupying 4th position with 13 impressive points. The enormous spending makes this dramatic collapse even more inexcusable and harder to stomach. We've invested well over £200 million in the past to transfer windows alone, brought in 13 new players during this most recent summer alone, and we're still playing like complete strangers who've never shared a training pitch. Together, James McCarthy cost us £30 million, and he's already looking completely lost in our dysfunctional tactical system. Igor Jesus was supposed to be our game-changing striker, the clinical finisher who'd solve our goal-scoring problems. But where exactly are those crucial goals when we desperately need them most? Our goal difference tells the complete story of our season's horror, -4 already, and we haven't even reached the end of September yet. We've managed to score just 6 goals in 6 Premier League games. That's exactly 1 goal per match, which is relegation-level output. Meanwhile, Arsenal have netted 18 times in the same period, and even newly promoted Ipswich Town have found the back of the net more frequently than we have. The upcoming fixture list isn't going to provide any relief either. We've got incredibly difficult away trips to Newcastle, Liverpool, and Manchester City all coming up in the next few weeks. At our current dismal rate of performance, we could genuinely find ourselves in the bottom 3 by Christmas, staring relegation straight in the face and wondering how everything went so dramatically wrong. Here's the most damning statistic that should terrify every Forest supporter: our current form, if maintained throughout the entire season, would see us relegated with several games still remaining to play. That's not pessimistic doom-mongering, that's cold, hard mathematical reality based on our actual points per game average. Is this the harsh reality check we desperately needed? Or have we genuinely lost our way completely as a football club? Let me know your thoughts, because the next revelation shows just how precarious our entire situation has become. The whispers echoing through the corridors of power are getting significantly louder. With each passing day, the pressure mounting on everyone connected with this football club is reaching unbearable levels. And if what I'm hearing from reliable sources inside the city ground is genuinely true, the next 7 days could determine not just the immediate future of Nottingham Forest, but the entire direction we're heading for potentially years to come. Behind the scenes at our beloved stadium, conversations are happening that could fundamentally change everything we know about this project. Emergency board meetings, heated discussions between executives and shareholders, difficult questions that nobody particularly wants to ask, but absolutely everybody knows desperately need answering. The clock is ticking ominously on Ange Postecoglou's tenure as our manager, and time is running out much faster than anyone could have possibly anticipated. Here's exactly what's coming up that has everyone inside the club walking on eggshells and feeling genuinely nervous. Tuesday night, we face FC Midtjylland in the Europa League, a European competition that's supposed to represent our salvation, our golden opportunity to prove we belong among the continent's elite football clubs. Then, just for short days later, we travel to Newcastle United for what could easily become the most crucial Premier League fixture of our entire season so far. To massive games, the final chances to save a managerial career, rescue what's left of our season, and prevent what's looking increasingly inevitable, complete disaster. But here's the brutal, unvarnished truth that nobody wants to acknowledge. If we lose both of these critical fixtures, there might not be a third opportunity for our Australian manager to turn this nightmare around. The Europa League clash against Midtjylland should be routine, straightforward, almost automatic. They're a decent Danish team with some quality players, but they're exactly the type of opposition we should be brushing aside with relative ease. If we have any genuine European ambitions whatsoever, a defeat in Denmark wouldn't just be embarrassing for everyone involved, it would be absolutely catastrophic for team morale and would raise serious questions about our ability to compete effectively on multiple fronts. But it's the Newcastle United fixture that really has the club hierarchy feeling genuinely nervous about the future. Eddie Howe's well-organized side are currently sitting comfortably in the top half of the table and playing with exactly the kind of intensity, organization, and tactical discipline that we can only dream about right now. They'll smell blood in the water from miles away, and you know they'll come at us with absolutely everything they've got. The stark numbers don't lie about the enormous pressure currently mounting on our manager's shoulders. 5 consecutive games without a single victory isn't just poor form that can be explained away. It's exactly the kind of disastrous run that gets people sacked at this unforgiving level of professional football. We're not talking about a patient, long-term rebuild here. This is the Premier League, where immediate results matter. infinitely more than philosophical approaches and where survival trumps attractive football every single time. What makes this precarious situation even more dangerous is the enormous financial investment that's been made in this project. When you spend £100 million on new players across multiple transfer windows, the expectation from supporters, media, and board members isn't just gradual improvement. It's immediate, tangible, measurable success that justifies every penny spent. The playing squad itself is clearly showing worrying signs of growing uncertainty and diminishing confidence. Players are second-guessing their decisions in crucial moments, hesitating when quick thinking is required, and constantly looking over their shoulders when things go wrong during matches. That's absolutely classic behavior from a team that's gradually losing faith in the tactical system they're being asked to implement. Here's what genuinely worries me most about our immediate future. The fixture list after Newcastle doesn't become any easier whatsoever. We've got Liverpool away, Manchester City at home, and Chelsea away, all rapidly approaching in the next few weeks. If we go into that absolutely brutal run of fixtures without any positive momentum, without any restored confidence, we could be staring at a genuinely catastrophic points total. That puts us in serious relegation danger. The supporters are already starting to demonstrate their growing frustration by voting with their feet. Season ticket renewal rates are reportedly down compared to previous years. The atmosphere at home games is becoming increasingly toxic and hostile, and there's a palpable sense among the fan base that this expensive experiment was a fundamental mistake from the very beginning. European managers often struggle dramatically with the relentless pace and uncompromising physicality of English football, and Postecoglou is beginning to look like another unfortunate casualty of that brutal cultural transition. His tactical approach might have worked brilliantly in Scotland or Australia, but the Premier League is an entirely different beast that demands pragmatism, adaptability, and genuine street intelligence. What happens if we lose both crucial games? Should the board maintain faith in their long-term vision, or is it time to cut losses and bring in someone who understands the unique demands of English football? Your opinion genuinely matters, so comment below, because what I'm about to reveal shows just how close we are to complete institutional breakdown. There's always a specific moment in every football crisis when you know, with absolute certainty, that things have gone too far to ever be repaired. When the sacred relationship between team and supporters crosses an invisible line, that simply cannot be uncrossed, no matter how much goodwill exists on both sides. Yesterday afternoon at the City Ground, in front of a global television audience, we witnessed that heartbreaking moment in all its raw, devastating, utterly soul-destroying reality. The final whistle had barely finished echoing around our historic stadium when it began. A sound that no genuine Forest supporter ever wants to hear directed at their own team, but one that felt absolutely inevitable after the torture we'd all just endured. For 90 excruciating minutes, the boos started slowly, almost hesitantly, from isolated pockets of frustration scattered throughout the ground. But then something extraordinary and terrifying happened. The individual voices of discontent merged together, grew stronger, became a unified chorus of anger that swept through every section, every tier, every corner of the City Ground like wildfire spreading through dry woodland. This wasn't just routine disappointment with a poor performance. This was pure, unbridled fury mixed with genuine heartbreak and complete loss of faith in everything we'd been promised. The supporters had finally, definitively snapped. After years of backing the team through relegation battles, financial crises, ownership changes, and countless disappointments, the famous Forest faithful had reached their absolute breaking point. And you know what the most painful truth is? You could hardly blame them for their reaction after what they'd been forced to witness. Picture this absolutely devastating scene. Players trudging off the pitch, with their heads hanging down in shame, knowing they let down everyone who matters to this football club. The manager looking completely lost, confused, totally out of his depth when faced with such raw emotion pouring down from the stands, like a torrential downpour. Stewards nervously positioned around the stadium, desperately hoping the palpable anger wouldn't escalate into something more dangerous or unpredictable. But here's what made yesterday's scene so particularly heartbreaking. These weren't just random complaints from glory hunters or fair-weather supporters who only show up when things are going well. These were the authentic voices of people who followed Nottingham Forest through absolute hell and back, Who lived through the nightmarish days of League One football? Who celebrated every small victory during our darkest periods? Like we just won the European Cup again. When supporters of that unwavering loyalty and dedication turn on you so publicly and decisively, it represents something much deeper than tactical disagreements or temporary poor form. It's a complete rejection of everything you represent, a fundamental statement that the relationship has been damaged, beyond any realistic possibility of repair. The brutal timing of this supporter revolt couldn't have been worse for everyone involved. This was supposed to be Ange Postecoglou's grand unveiling at the City Ground, his first home league match in charge, the magical moment when our supporters would embrace the new project and give it their complete, enthusiastic backing for the challenges ahead. Instead, it became a very public execution broadcast live to millions of viewers around the world, a collective statement from our fan base that this expensive experiment has already failed catastrophically and irreversibly. The optics were absolutely terrible, the message couldn't have been clearer, and everyone within professional football understands exactly what those sustained boos represented. You could see the psychological damage being inflicted in real time as our players disappeared down the tunnel toward the dressing room. The defeat itself was painful enough to stomach, but being so brutally rejected by their own supporters in such a public forum, that's the kind of traumatic experience that destroys confidence permanently, creates deep psychological scars that can last for months or even entire seasons. What made these scenes even more poignant was the obvious contrast. With just a few short weeks earlier, these exact same supporters had given our expensive new signings genuinely warm welcomes. During preseason, had embraced the promise of attractive football and renewed European ambitions with characteristic enthusiasm and optimism. The social media reaction to yesterday's scenes was immediate, brutal, and utterly merciless. Videos of the sustained booing spread across Twitter and other platforms within minutes of the final whistle, quickly becoming a viral symbol of everything wrong with our current situation. Rival supporters from across the country joined in the collective mockery, turning our genuine pain into their entertainment and cheap amusement. The sound of those boos will haunt everyone connected with this football club for months, possibly years to come. Our players will hear that rejection echoing in their minds during every subsequent match. The manager will replay those scenes during team talks and tactical discussions, and the board will be constantly reminded of their expensive mistake every time they walk through the stadium. But perhaps most heartbreakingly of all, you could sense the genuine sadness and disappointment hidden behind all that anger and frustration. These aren't supporters who derive any pleasure from booing their own team. They're people who've been pushed beyond their emotional limit by watching something they love being systematically destroyed before their very eyes right now. It feels like we're witnessing the tragic final act of a relationship that once meant everything to everyone involved. The supporters who transformed the City Ground into one of the most intimidating venues in English football have now become the biggest psychological threat to their own team's fragile confidence. How exactly did we reach this devastating point? And more importantly, is there any realistic way back from such complete breakdown? What did you think of the supporters' reaction? Were they justified? Or should they have shown more patience? Your thoughts matter, because this story is far from over. So here we stand, Forest family, at the crossroads of our entire identity as a football club. Everything we've witnessed over these past few weeks, every painful moment I've shared with you today, has led us to this critical juncture where fundamental decisions must be made that will shape our future for years, possibly decades to come. The evidence is overwhelming, undeniable, and absolutely damning. 5 games without a victory, 16 points behind where we were at this stage last season. Supporters turning on their own team in the most public way imaginable, and a manager who looks more lost with each passing match. This isn't just a rough patch that time will heal. This is a complete systematic breakdown of everything we thought we were building. But here's what makes this crisis even more profound and troubling. We're not just failing on the pitch where results can be explained away as temporary setbacks or tactical adjustments. We're witnessing the complete erosion of the spiritual connection between club and community, the sacred bond that makes football clubs more than just businesses or entertainment commodities. The Nottingham Forest that conquered Europe, that produced legends like Brian Clough and made the impossible seem routine, feels like it belongs to a completely different universe from what we're seeing today. That spirit, that belief, that unbreakable connection between team and supporters, It's all being systematically destroyed by poor decisions and misguided appointments. Think about the broader implications of what's happening here. We've spent over £200 million trying to buy success, assembled what should be a competitive squad on paper, appointed a manager with genuine credentials and tactical knowledge. Yet we're performing worse than teams operating on fractions of our budget. Teams that understand something fundamental about English football that we've clearly forgotten. The next few weeks will determine whether this is rock bottom, the moment we finally wake up and start climbing back toward respectability, or whether we're destined to continue this horrific spiral into genuine relegation danger. The fixtures coming up are absolutely crucial, not just for points, but for the psychological health of everyone connected with this club. Tuesday's Europa League match against Midtjylland isn't just about European progression anymore. It's about proving we can beat teams we should comfortably defeat, about restoring some basic confidence in players who look terrified of their own shadows. A defeat there would represent more than tactical failure. It would confirm that the rot has spread so deep that even supposedly easier games have become insurmountable challenges. Then comes Newcastle, a fixture that could easily become the defining moment of Ange Postecoglou's managerial tenure. Win, and maybe there's still hope for this project. Lose, and the pressure will become unbearable for everyone involved, from the boardroom to the dressing room to the terraces, where patience has already run completely dry. But beyond these immediate fixtures, there are deeper questions that demand honest answers. Have we fundamentally misunderstood what type of club we are and what type of manager we need? Can continental tactical philosophy ever truly work in the unique environment of English football? Are we trying to become something that goes against our natural DNA as a football institution? The supporters' reaction yesterday wasn't just about one poor performance, or even one disappointing season. It represented years of accumulated frustration with decisions that seemed to prioritize style over substance, philosophy over pragmatism, attractive football over actual results that matter in the unforgiving reality of Premier League survival. Perhaps most worryingly, we're seeing the emergence of a toxic atmosphere that could take years to recover from, even if results dramatically improve. When supporters lose faith to this extent, when the relationship becomes this fractured and hostile, it creates psychological barriers that affect everything from player recruitment to on-field performance. The silence from the board during this crisis has been deafening and increasingly concerning. Supporters deserve transparency about the decision-making process, about contingency plans, about whether lessons are being learned from these expensive mistakes. The lack of communication only adds to the sense that nobody really knows how to solve this growing disaster. What happens next will define not just this season, but the entire trajectory of Nottingham Forest as a football club. Do we persist with a project that's clearly failing, hoping that time and patience will eventually produce the results we desperately need? Or do we admit that fundamental mistakes have been made and take decisive action before it's too late? The clock is ticking, the pressure is mounting, and the next few days could determine whether we're watching the beginning of a recovery or the continuation of a catastrophic decline that threatens everything we hold dear about this magnificent, frustrating, absolutely essential football club. I want to hear from every single one of you in the comments below. What would you do if you were making these decisions? How do we find our way back from this crisis? And most importantly, do you still believe this season can be saved? Or is it already delayed for redemption? Because whatever happens next, we'll face it together as Forest, through good times and bad, through triumph and disaster, through hope and heartbreak. That's what being part of this family means, and that's something no amount of poor results can ever change. Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay with me through whatever comes next, because this story is far from over, and the next chapter could be the most important one we've ever written together.